Morning, guys. I'm gonna do a follow-up now on from my last video, which was when I getting into Vice Division, and I started to touch on one of the most important things or larger functions, and that was doing undercover work. Uh, the main part of what we did really. Aside from sneak and peeks and surveillance and stuff like that, was doing buys or buy busts. Um, and, typically we did them on the smaller scale of things, um, rocks, grams, ounces, eight balls, and, um, and there were certainly a ton of people on my shift who had done more and larger buys than I did, and but I was so fortunate to uh, watch them, learn from them, listen to them, and I just admire people who have game, that natural ability to talk to just anybody and to think on their feet, and it's a real skill and also a super fun part of the job. And sort of the other part of that, when you think of, I wouldn't call most drug guys investigators, but plainclothes guys, the other part, sort of that job, which is, has a lot to do with informant work, is writing tickets. And when we say tickets, we all often are referring to search warrants. Um, and that's a necessary skill, not just in drug work, obviously, uh, but writing, uh, you know, what we call it in our world, is something that many specialty and plainclothes units need. And so you can, write and get search warrants, um, depending on what it's for, who they're for, without the without informants, but sometimes, but the majority of the time, you need that trusted, proven source, um, as part of your investigation to get in there. And that's certainly another area where I was slow to develop, and I really had to pay attention to senior guys on the shift that had done that before. Um, I'd had a couple of FTOs or field trainers when I was in uniform who, gave me a bit of a taste of that because they had a background in it. Um, and I'd taken all the appropriate courses for it: search warrant writing, drafting, and all that kind of stuff. But doing it live or in the field is, again, a skill that takes time, and I had to work hard to be half decent at it. Um, but that being said, over the course of the 3 years, I wrote in the area of about 20. But let's go back to the beginning. And my first few were fucking hits and misses, swing and a miss. First two. My first couple, I had the wrong address. You're taking a bit of a leap of faith. Of course, you can't act solely on informant information, especially if it's a first-time informant. There's a lot of checks that you do. You got to do your homework, um, and it's got to be, pretty current and reliable, and you got to back up what your guy or gal tells you, and then you go about the process of writing your little short story, which is an, often called an appendix, and there's other various forms that you have to fill out with it. So yeah, swing and a miss on the first one, not great. That cost me. There is often a unofficial fine system in place, which is part of earning your dues, which you have to be willing to accept, and you don't fight it, because if you do, things are going to be worse for you. And then the second one that I wrote, the right address this time, and the information on the person checked out, but when we got there, as is sometimes the case, there was a lot of evidence, paraphernalia and shit like that, uh, that's zero product, or at least we didn't find any. And when you're brand new and really wanting to succeed, the last thing you want to do is fuck up and fail. But, of course, that's where you learn. Um, and, uh, and then part of that failure is you have to be. So this was the, early 2000s. I started there in 2004. You have to be willing to roll with the fucking punches. And you got to take razzing from the guys, from the shift. And I think even back then, 20 years ago, um, people accepted that as part of the process, or part of working in a unit like that. Nowadays, you might have people who whine and complain and don't go to their direct supervisors, or go above their heads and complain about workplace bullying and stuff. And there's a very discernible line between razzing and inappropriate stuff. But nowadays, people just are overly sensitive and can't handle shit like that. And of course, it speaks a great deal to your character when you get tested like that and what you do with it. So I remember getting back to the office after my second warrant, and just driving back in the car by myself, just feeling like fucking miserable shit. And I knew what was coming, and I expected it, and I knew that I was going to accept it, and and take my lumps. And so, sure enough, I don't know to this day who did it, but I know that the staff sergeant inspectors were in on it as well. I had a fictitious transfer request laid out on my desk, and asking for a transfer out of the vice division, and I wish I'd have kept it, or I wish I'd remembered exactly the comments that were on it. And so when I sat down, I just looked at it, and instead of letting it get to me, or getting upset, or whining or moaning about mistreatment, I took that fucking thing and I pinned it up on the wall right next to my desk, so that I could look at it, so that it would remind me of what not to do and motivate me to fucking succeed. And I took all the shots and jokes and lumps, because that's just part of the goddamn job, regardless of where you work. And you have to be willing to accept that, and it's what you do with it that matters. I'm no fucking superhero, but I took that as fuel to succeed, not give up, and to work harder and smarter next time to being successful. And I continued to go to the senior guys, asking them for advice. I continued to work the same informant as I had for my first two search warrants on my third one. But this time I really highlighted and underlined and bolded, hit the B button while you're typing, all my fucking checks and all my homework, to make sure that I had shit right. And I once again wrote another search warrant, went down to the courthouse to apply for it, not letting it get my previous misfortunes get to me, and taking all the shots on the way there, knowing what full well could happen again. And so thank fuck I was successful on my third one. And though, I didn't bring home kilos of cocaine, I was fucking successful. The target was there. The product was there. Pretty close to as what was described by my informant. And a firearm was there. So we had a whole whack of bit of a clusterfuck. We had a whole whack of people in the apartment. Um, but the target, when we took them at the door, had about a half ounce of product on them. We found about another ounce in the place, and we found, I remember it was a really cool pistol. It was a Luger, so what looked like one of those German Luger pistols in one of the bedrooms. It was a 22, but it was loaded with one in the chamber ready to go, and a shit ton of paraphernalia. So fucking boom, success. And fuck did it feel good, because everything went right. And I've no doubt some of the or the culprit that had written my fake transfer request um, was in the room, uh, was at the search warrant, and but oh fuck, did that feel good to get that monkey off my back and be successful, and oh, it was just so good, and my boss at the time, or my S1 or sergeant, shift sergeant. Um, who I would describe as a grumpy old fuck. But I also had a ton of respect for and loved working for him. Um, he was the type of guy who, unlike some supervisors today, are constantly positively motivating you or telling you how great you're doing or that you're gonna do great. And, it just doesn't feel genuine. Um, but this was one of those old school dudes um, who, you knew where he stood. I knew where he stood, and he congratulated you when you did something right, and he gave you shit when you fucked up. But it was always accurate and genuine, and that guy stood his ground when he made decisions. And I think that's something that's really lacking nowadays, to be honest with you. People tend to flip-flop or be wishy-washy a hell of a lot more. And it's not like, he wasn't really willing to listen to reason. But it's just, it wasn't his way or the highway. But when he asked you to do something, you did it. When he told you to do something, you did it, and it made you want to work for him. I wanted to work for him, even though we weren't close, we weren't friends. I wasn't one of his guys, and there was a clear structure of that. But he and other bosses, I really respected the way they ran the shift. And I think of one of the most important things is running a shift briefing. So whether you're working on a search warrant or a buy bust or a series of buys or a project, all the supervisors are in the room, in the briefing room, one end of the table. All the constables are around the table. And one thing that I really enjoyed for two bosses in particular was they each had a knack for, or naturally did the same thing, and they were good at it. They would start off on one end of the table and say, okay, what do you got? Go to the next guy or gal. What do you got? Okay, what do you got? Everybody who had something, everybody had something to say, whether it was information to act on or not, would get their turn to say, this is what I have. I got this from this guy. I got this from that guy. And they did a absolutely fucking fantastic job of listening to everything that you had, determine what was sort of the hotter hit, no pun intended, to do, and which was more imminent and which had the likelihood or possibility of yielding better results. And that was a huge thing that I really appreciated. And it gave everybody a chance to say what they were working on or what was going on. And it was that's a quality. Sorry about the shaking there. Just noticed that it's shaking a bit. That's really giving everybody a chance to do their stuff. And that's one thing that in units like that, everybody's excited to work on their own shit, but you can't always work on your own files or stuff, and you have to be the real good cops, drug cops or otherwise, are just as excited to work on somebody else's stuff, on one of their shift mates' stuff, as they are theirs. And another quality that the good cops that I got to work with there and other places possessed was they were willing to, often didn't have to be asked, they would volunteer to do the shit jobs. Nobody likes fucking doing exhibits when you're in the drug unit. It's not fun, it's tedious, and it's a lot of work, and it's the hardest work, or one of the hardest jobs to do. And so when you see senior experienced guys excited and volunteering to do the exhibits on your buy bus or your search warrant, you just automatically, if you're a good dude or a good girl, a good cop period, you automatically volunteer next time, and you have to take your turn. That's fucking teamwork. Teamwork isn't just being there and doing the fun jobs. It's doing all the shit dirty ones too. So those are, I knew about those values, but it's really different when you're in a tighter, specific or focused unit. And that was just one reason, that I really loved it. I was just having a fucking blast. And when you combine that with fun work and seeing results, it just makes your fucking day. It's so great. And going back to briefings now too, so that's one of the things that in uniform, it's always your S2s or your S1s. They're conducting the briefings, whatever relevant bolos or bulletins, things to look out for, or hot crime areas, not just fires, or arsons, to look out for. They're the ones conducting it. But in the drug unit at that time, when you're the guy, when it's your file or your info, you're the one who's conducting the briefing. You're the one who's standing up in front of the entire shift and laying out what your info is and what your plan is and assigning people tasks. And that gets you out of your comfort zone, and it teaches you learn a different set of skills, and you grow your career diversity and experience that way. And that was just I've never really been afraid of public speaking. I don't mind doing it. So since then I've done lots of speaking engagements and shit like that for a friend who was a prof at university, criminology stuff, drug canine presentations, stuff like that. And I had a lot of experience ahead of time, so I was comfortable when it came to do that stuff. And so that was just such a huge part of being in that unit. And I was enjoying myself so much. That particular shift, it was like a bunch of mischievous cousins and brothers and sisters that I had the great fortune to work with. It was such a wild opportunity. It was just such a high, if you'll pardon the pun, working in the drug unit. I loved it so much. That was something, that career-wise or family-wise, it not in a negative way, but that was all about me. Those 3 years were all about me. And I was selfish in terms of putting work first before family. And there were, I didn't behave the best, putting it mildly. And I let that lifestyle get to me. And, I won't go into details on everything. I'm sure a lot of people who've worked there or known people who work there but you know, I wasn't the healthiest, best person, and and so when my 3 year was up, um, I was the right thing to do was to go back to uniform and get onto that schedule. And yeah, and one other thing I'll touch on before we leave until next time is, you know, whenever you're in a specialty unit like that, doing a specified different job, what's important to remember is that you will always go back to uniform. You'll always go back to GP, because that's the real shit. That's the frontline stuff. And so I saw too many people, when they're in those units, treating uniform guys like crap. And it's just absolute fucking bullshit. Talking down to them, talking differently to them, acting like you're fucking better. And that's a load of fucking crap. I pride myself on the fact that I never did that. I always spoke to uniform guys as though they were my equal, guys and gals, because they are. Any specialty unit, whether it's homicide or TST or guns and gangs or whatever the fuck, the real thing is that your job is just different. That's it. Your assignment, your skills, your tasks, your mandates, your job's different. We're no fucking better. And you got to remember that your whole 25 or 30 years, and sometimes that's hard because just you're far removed for it, and what you're doing is so different, and you're focused on different things, and your goals and objectives are different. But you always go back to uniform, and the guys and gals that are in there, while they might not be in your unit, they're on your fucking side. They're on your team. And so any guys and gals that are watching this that go into those specialty unit places, please remember that. Remember that that's who you were. That's who you're going back to be. And so to treat every cop like part of your team. So again, take care, guys. Take care of upstairs and your core. And we'll see you next time.